Hello, my name is Rachel, and I decided to do the handwritten method for the mind map project, mainly because I like writing and drawing, and for my project I named it Intersecting Identities. The first identity that I have chosen is race, mainly because race is one of the most oppressed identity groups, and it has been for a long time. There are privileges to some races, for example, being white. White people in our world, unfortunately, in some cases, are treated better than blacks or other races. Whites have a hierarchical relationship. They benefit from being white, with automatically having more power than others. They also tend to have more options, from being chosen over another race for a job to having hair care products available to them in all stores. Blacks are oppressed. They have many restrictions, such as not fitting in with many people, being treated differently than others, maybe having a harder time getting a job or getting into a good school. We should be getting justice for other races instead of exploiting them. We have to acknowledge their problems, and we have to acknowledge our privileges so that we can better understand them and they can know that we're trying to help and listen to them, and really try to understand what they're going through. We need to become an ally to them and stick up for them and take a stand and try to fight for equality of civil rights. The next identity I chose is sexual orientation. I chose this identity because many people who struggle with their sexual identity, and I felt it is a really important one. Okay, so straight people in America hold a hierarchical relationship. They are looked at as the normal ones. They automatically receive more power than the LGBTQ community. Many people today are oppressed because of the way they identify their sexual orientation. They are discriminated against because they identify different than a normal person. Most people do show bias, and they will favor someone who is more like them. The LGBTQ community has many restrictions in life. They have to be worried about violence everywhere they go because people don't like how they identify. They live in fear and they're just afraid sometimes. I have a friend who she tells me that she's sometimes afraid at college to go to class because a lot of the people don't accept her and they make really rude comments to her, and it's just something really hard that they have to deal with just because of how they identify. In many cases, they are powerless because people don't take the time to even want to listen to them and understand what they're going through. They are marginalized. They are excluded from things and don't have much say over their lives, as in getting married and being who they want to be. Although this world is starting to become more accepting to them, some states are legalizing same-sex marriage and allowing people to choose which bathroom they prefer. Don't get me wrong, discrimination against this community is still very much, but there are small changes that are helping them to better themselves. We should try our best to become an ally to them and become more educated about sexual identity and people who identify differently than us, and educate others as well so that other people can be aware so that they're able to help as well. We should help fight for equality. We can start with schools, churches, work, and stand up for them. And the last identity I chose is disability. I chose disability because many people don't know. A lot of people that they see on a day-to-day basis are even living with a disability, such as people with emotional illnesses, people who are deaf. People just don't know unless you really understand and educate yourself and get to know these people. It is so important to stay educated and try to learn and understand people who are living with disabilities. Many people living with a disability are oppressed. They are exploited. They are not being treated the same as their neighbors. They're not being able to or thought to be able to do things that others can do. They do have a harder time being able to do things, but people need to understand that they do have disability and that they should take the time to let them be themselves and in it and to do what you're doing. People living with disabilities have many restrictions. They are discriminated against because they are different. Some things may be more difficult for them, so people don't want to deal with them and take the time to help them learn and to understand what they are going through. They experience ableism. They do not have all of the same rights or access as other people who do not have a disability. Some can read, some can't read, some can't hear, some can't walk, and many other things. So life is harder for a lot of people who have disabilities. Many times people living with a disability are victims of domestic violence. This happens because they are vulnerable and easier to take advantage of, especially if they can't walk, hear, if they're deaf, and they can't defend themselves. They're much more vulnerable, and this is why people with disability, there is a much higher rate for domestic violence. So I think we really need to educate ourselves and understand this so that we can help stop people taking advantage of people with disabilities. This happens, we need to do all we can to get justice for people living with a disability. They may be different than some, and it may take them a bit longer to do things, but they are the same as all of us. They are capable, unique, and independent, and they are valued in our society. We need to be an ally to them and help them retrieve equal treatment, and to not be looked down upon just because they're different than the rest of us, and they may not be able to do all the same things we can do. Those are my 3 identities that I chose. I chose all 3 of these because I felt they're 3 very important identities that people really need to educate themselves more about so that we are able to become allies and help anybody who identifies in one of these groups to get equal rights and be treated fairly. And on the back, my name and my references. I found information on a few sites, and the rest of the information came from all of the lectures and the slides from Dr. Anthony's social work class. And that's my project. Thank you.